So today I'm making a sort of beef curry dish from Bangladesh called kala bhuna, which translates as basically blackened roast. So to get started, I have a kilo of chuck. This was prepped as a roast, so I'm just going to remove the string, and I'm going to cut it into 2 centimeter pieces. I'm using chuck because it has a good amount of fat on it, and for a long stewing process, that will lend to juiciness and flavor. Throw that meat into a large pot or Dutch oven, and to that we're going to add half of a cubed up onion. Now let's go in with our herbs and spices. I've got 2 bay leaves, 2 black cardamom pods, 2 star anise, 5 cloves, a handful of peppercorns, about 15 or 20 should do, about 5 or 10 coriander seeds, a stick of cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Next, I want to make a garlic ginger paste. So I'm going to peel about 5 cloves of garlic, as well as a good 3 centimeter knob of ginger. Throw those guys into the bowl of a food processor with a good glug of oil, and puree those until a smooth paste forms. All in all, you need about 2 tablespoons of this. Next up, we're going to thinly slice the other half of that onion from before. And we're going to take half of that and fry it in a half cup of oil. Let that fry until it's dark brown and crispy. Remove to a paper towel to dry off. And throw that on in, reserving the oil. Next, I've got a tablespoon of Kashmiri chili powder, a teaspoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of ground coriander, a few pinches of salt, 1 cup of plain yogurt, and let's add in that half a cup of oil from frying the onions. Now, another option for that oil would be to use mustard oil. That isn't available in the States as far as I can tell, so instead of that I'm going to add in a teaspoon of ground mustard seed to add back in that pungency that you get from the mustard oil. Give everything a good mix until the meat is thoroughly coated in our seasoning. Then we're going to cover that up and let it marinate for at least an hour. After an hour, let's throw that onto a burner over high heat and cook it for 10 minutes, stirring continuously. After 10 minutes, the liquid from the yogurt should start separating, at which point we will cover it up and reduce the heat to low and let it cook for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it should look nice and liquidy like this. Give it a good stir, making sure that nothing's sticking to the bottom of the pot. Cover it up and let it go for another 30 minutes. Once again, after 30 minutes, let's give it a stir, and we're going to add in a second batch of seasoning at this point. Half a teaspoon of black pepper, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, half a teaspoon of cumin powder, and half a teaspoon of celery seed, or if you've got raduni powder, use a half a teaspoon of that. Mix that all in, cover it once more, this time partially to let some steam out, and let it go for another 30 minutes. Finally, after 30 minutes, it should start taking on a deeper color. So test it for salt. In this case, I added a couple pinches. Then we're going to take the last quarter of that onion and saute it in a 1/4 cup of oil, along with some sliced garlic and a few dried chili peppers. Saute those until they're golden, at which point we will dump the whole thing into our pot with the meat. Give it all a good stir to incorporate. And we're good to serve. So after 4 hours of slow cooking, the meat is incredibly tender, and the spice blend is condensed into this thick coating that's just covering all of the meat. It's concentrated, it's darkened, it's become more robust, and it's very flavorful. Now, I know that it's called blackened roast, and I know that to get a blackened roast, you need a lot of time. But I'm not sure that the time that you input is necessarily equal to what you get out of this. Don't get me wrong, it's very flavorful, but I think that if you took the same blend of spices, condensed the time down to maybe an hour, you'd still get very tender meat and very flavorful meat, and more of the juices floating around to make it a little less pasty tasting, a little wetter. So would I recommend that you make this at home? Maybe make some alterations to it and try it out yourself, or if you've got a whole day to tinker around like I do, then go for it. But otherwise, maybe visit your local Bangladeshi restaurant and let them do the hard work. See you next time. Cheers.